Call a meeting to order.
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Hawk,
Yes.
Williams,
First order of business is approval of minutes, August 25th, 2014.
So moved.
Second.
Lesh,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Nichols,
Abstain, it's working.
Bott,
Yes. Next, we have a public hearing, 2014-2015 operating and capital budget. Bruce?
I'm going to move to open it.
I'm sorry?
You have to move to open it.
Oh, sorry. I move to open the public hearing.
Second.
Lesh,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Bott.
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor, council members, citizens of Mexico. It's my pleasure to present for your consideration the fiscal year 2015 budget for the City of Mexico. The document represents the city's financial plan for the coming fiscal year that runs from October 1, 2014 through September 30, 2015. The purpose of the annual operating budget and program of service document is to present to the public a comprehensive picture of our operations for the budget year expressed in both verbal and statistical terms. This budget has been built on conservative financial principles that reflect a commitment to maintain services and improve the overall quality of operations. This budget meets the state statute of being balanced. The local economic climate has shown signs of improvement during the past couple of years. However, city staff continually monitors the expenses and revenues to ensure that the city remains fiscally stable. Government finance is based upon fund accounting. That is accounting that is a system that emphasizes accountability rather than profitability. Government agencies have the special requirement to show in its financial statements and reports how much money is spent rather than how much profit was earned. Each fund operates like a separate business within the greater organization. This means that all revenues and expenditures are classified and assigned to a particular fund for tracking. This segregation of funds provides a level accountability to ensure that public funds are expended in the appropriate manner. Our budget is lean, but still enables the city to make strategic investments in areas that will help our community move forward. The total budget expenditures equals $15,331,000. Total revenues equal $14,050,000. The expenditures do exceed revenues by $1,281,000, and that the funds for this, to help offset this, will be from project reserves and unfunded, unreserved balances. A significant portion of the expenditures is for interfund transfers, the purchase of a fire truck, purchase of a street sweeper, capital improvement projects, and carryover projects. The city's total assessed property value for this budget year decreased due to reduction in commercial property values, personal property values. Special Road District 13 reduced its payment for support of city streets by 50%. We continue to experience rate increases above the rate of inflation for utilities, street lighting, property liability insurance, as well as health and dental insurances. Reoccurring expenditures and cost to replace capital equipment continues to increase. Sales tax receipts are up compared to last year's budget and are up compared on the 5-year average. Lodging tax receipts are also up for the projected year. This budget is balanced. There is cash balances will be maintained in all funds in order to meet the reserve policy requirements. The county assesses property at a % of market value. Therefore, commercial property is assessed at 32% of market value. Personal property is at 33.3% of market value, residential at 19%, and agricultural at 12%. Tax rates are levied on a per $100 of assessed property values. The city's total assessed property value for this budget year did decrease by a total of $4,535,000 from roughly $140,762,000 down to $136,226,000. The valuation of personal property did decrease by $6.1 million. City property tax revenue will decrease in 2015 as a result of this decrease in assessed property values. The city property tax revenue and rates for 2015 for the general fund will be at 43.25 cents. It'll be 10 cents, and that 43 cents will generate just slightly under $590,000. The Parks and Recreation tax rate will remain at the 10 cents and will generate $136,000. And the Public Health tax rate will remain at 20 cents, and that will roughly generate $272,000. As I said earlier, the sales tax for the general fund, Parks and Recreation fund, and capital improvements funds are anticipated to increase by 4.3% overall, and we are trending up over the 5-year average. Gross receipts taxes for 2015 are expected to be stable and trending up slightly. Lodging tax receipts are anticipated to increase by roughly 10% as compared to last budget year. Property and liability insurance renewal rates are estimated to increase roughly by 16% over last year. Employee health rates are estimated to increase by roughly 12.8% effective January 1. The budget includes the cost associated with continuing the high deductible health plan coupled with the use of a health savings plan, and the increases will be split proportionately between employees and the city. Dental insurance rates are estimated to increase roughly by 8% January 1. All insurance rates, however, are estimated currently on industrial averages, but we will make sure that all policies will be bid to ensure the best possible rates. There will be a reduction of one full-time staff position due to attrition in this budget. This budget includes a step increase for each employee on the wage scale that will be implemented in accordance with the Employee Personnel Manual. All individual employee wage increases are contingent upon receiving a satisfactory or better rating on their annual evaluation. Support for outside agencies. For the Mexico Senior Center, $11,000. The Audrain County Historical Society, $4,900. The Miss Missouri Scholarship Pageant, $10,000. The Help Center, $10,000. Optimus Youth Sports, $2,700. For contract agencies, for the Handy Shop to continue to perform the recycling program, $18,000. For the Mexico Chamber of Commerce for marketing, $13,000. Presser Hall Community Theater, $10,000. Also, to support this budget, we have incorporated grant funding. We anticipate receiving from the Tennis Association for new tennis courts, $200,000. From the Missouri Department of Transportation for planning for the replacement of the Pollock Bridge, $64,000. From the Missouri Department of Transportation for the Moore Street improvements, $129,300. From DOT for airport layout plan, $193,500. That totals bringing in from outside agencies for grant funding of $586,800. The general fund is the chief operating fund of the city. This fund supports those operations most identified with the city, such as public safety, administration, finance, community development, emergency management, engineering, cemetery, and streets. The general fund budgeted revenues equals $5,620,000, and expenditures are equal to $6,959,000. The estimated expenditures and interfund transfers are greater than revenues by $1,339,000. The budgeted transfers out of the general fund are $500,000 to Capital Projects Reserve Fund, $305,000 to the Parks Recreation Fund. Within the general fund, we have also planned to spend $430,000 for a fire truck, $25,750 for city code recodification, $40,000 for a salt storage building, and $160,000 for a street sweeper, all of which are qualifying capital expenditures. Therefore, no cash balances are being expended for reoccurring expenditures. The ending fund balance goal policy by the general fund is 25%. However, the ending fund balance estimated for 2015 with this budget will be at 42%. Significant projects and programs that are included in the general fund. Public safety, virtualization equipment, $11,300. Pagers, radios, cameras, $11,000. Patrol vehicles, $52,000. Fire truck, $430,000. Streets and engineering, we have a traffic counter unit at $1,100. A skid steer loader, $55,000. Half-ton pickup, $24,000. Portable brine tank, $3,500. Salt storage building, $40,000. Street sweeper, $160,000. Within the cemetery, a dingo for $22,545. A rear discharge mower, $9,750. For community development, sidewalk replacement program, $7,500. A building inspector vehicle, $19,500. Under administration, fireproof file cabinet, $6,600. Network storage server, $9,090. Recodification, $25,750. Under buildings and grounds, for public safety, building maintenance, $66,000. For the city maintenance building improvements, $19,100. As I said earlier, within the general fund, we are transferring to the Parks and Recreation under 2. That will be $105,000 for operation and $200,000 for capital projects. This is designated for pool repairs. We're transferring $30,000 to the airport and $500,000 to the capital projects reserve. Under the wastewater fund, budget revenues for the fiscal year equal $2,890,000, operating expenditures $2,015,000, plus an interfund transfer of $780,000 to the wastewater debt service fund for total expenditures of $2,796,000. The ending fund balance goal by policy for the wastewater fund is recommended to be at 25%. The ending fund balance for this budget will be at 91%. That seems high, but that does include designated funds for the upcoming bond payments, bond reserve, and future capital improvements. Under the wastewater, future capital improvements for the next 5 years include roughly over $2.5 million in programmed expenditures. This budget reflects a 3% increase in wastewater rates effective in October of 2014 to meet operating expenses, the capital improvements, and the debt service obligations. This projected increase is 1% below the original estimated in the wastewater rate study to meet these required improvements. We were able to reduce this projected increase due to implementing a pay-as-you-go program for improvements versus borrowing funds and paying interest. Significant programs and projects within the wastewater fund included are a GIS data layer and work order system, $6,500. Engineering design for a generator at the wastewater plant, $45,000. Collection system improvements, $60,000. Slip lining within the collection system, $150,000. Building improvements, $25,000. Equipment replacement, $25,000. Lift station improvements, $37,500. Flow meter replacements, $13,143. And engineering design, maps and surveys, $40,000. Under the sanitation fund, revenues received for sanitation and garbage utility are deposited into this fund. Expenses are for the contracted residential refuse services, spring and fall cleanups, drop-off recycling, household hazardous waste disposal, brush grinding, wood mulch services are all paid out of this fund. Budgeted revenues equal $567,000, and expenditures and operations $566,000, plus a projected for the equipment replacement in the amount of $7,500 and an $80,000 transfer to the general fund to help with the purchase of the street sweeper for total expenditures of $653,000. With the street sweeper purchase, we are funding 50% of it out of this fund and 50% out of the general fund. The ending fund balance for the sanitation fund is recommended at 25%. We are estimated that this fund will close at 28%. This budget anticipates a 3% increase in sanitation rates effective April of 2015 billing to meet the operational expenses and increases in the contract for residential refuse service. The city has the yard waste operation and grinding and chipping services under this fund and currently a contract with Brake Brothers. That contract will expire in April of 2015. A new contract will need to be bid, or the city will need to assume operational duties over the yard waste operation. The city is expecting an increase in the operational costs associated with yard waste operations, regardless if the service is contracted or city operated. The Economic Development Fund. Lease revenue received from the city-owned industrial speculative buildings are deposited into this fund. Building owner expenses related to the buildings and the annual debt service payment on the buildings are paid out of this fund. Budgeted revenues is projected to be at $197,000, expenditures at $199,000. The single largest expense in this fund is for the debt payment of the city-owned building. The second largest expense does support job creation, industrial recruitment, and economic development planning. The city also owns the railroad spur that serves the business park located in the industrial park. The spur is in need of repairs, and funds have been budgeted to make those repairs in this fund. The ending fund balance policy for the Economic Development Fund is recommended to be at 50%. Where ending balance is estimated to be at 220%. Again, this seems majorly high, but that's not a lot of money when you look at the total dollars. And the issue that we want to make sure why we have money here is because we want to make sure that we have the annual debt service payment for the spec building set aside. That payment is roughly $100,000 a year. So having 2 years of payment set aside is not a bad thing. In the Parks and Recreation Fund, revenue from the dedicated property tax in the amount of the 10 cents per $100 of assessed value, the dedicated park sales tax, and charges for user fees, parks and recreation programs are also deposited into this fund. Budgeted revenues is projected to be $1,513,000. Expenditures are expected to be $1,592,000. This budget does reflect a reduction in cash balance due to current year carryover of capital projects, equipment purchases, and planned capital projects. This fund is also supported by a $305,000 transfer from the general fund. As we all know, the city pool suffered major mechanical failure late in 2014 season, and therefore, before the pool can reopen, it will require repairs. The cost and the extent of the repairs are being investigated. Therefore, $200,000 of the transfer from the general fund is being designated for pool repairs. The ending fund balance policy for the parks is recommended to be at 25%. We are estimating right now that we'll end at 22%. The significant projects and programs included in this budget under the parks: a rotary tiller for tractor, $4,400; a rotary sewer cleaner, $3,750; Plunkett Park aerator pump, $5,000; RS Green Park restroom, $55,000; Fairgrounds Park restroom, $80,000. Trail benches, $5,000. Picnic tables, $7,000. Aluminum bleachers, $4,000. Micro seal on the AP Green Trail, $14,400. Tennis court expansion, $200,000. Skate park equipment, $14,700. Playground equipment, $60,000. Pool repairs renovation, $200,000. The Public Health and Animal Control Fund. Revenues from a dedicated public health tax in the amount of 20 cents per $100 of assessed value is deposited here. Humane Society helps a lot in this fund. Animal tags, charges for impounds are deposited into this fund. Costs for running the animal shelter, nuisance abatements, dangerous building demolitions, pest control are all paid out of here. Budgeted revenue for the fiscal year is estimated to be $328,000, with expenditures $348,000. The reduction in cash balance is to fund the support of the demolition program, which is currently experiencing increase in requests. The ending fund balance goal is to be at 25%. We estimate will end at 46%. The Airport Fund. Revenue for this fund is reliant on interfund transfers from the general fund and the capital improvement sales tax fund, along with hangar rental and a percent of fuel sales. Operating expenses for the fixed-based operators management contract and day-to-day operation expenses for the airport are paid out of this fund. Budgeted revenues equal $259,000, expenditures $277,000. An increase in expenditures in this fund is due to updating the airport layout plan, estimated to cost $215,000, which is funded by a DOT grant, and that grant is estimated $193,500. The $30,000 transfer from the general fund and $10,000 transfer from the capital improvement sales tax is being made to support airport operations and as grant match. The ending fund balance is projected to be at 27%, which is higher than the 25% goal policy. In the capital improvement sales tax fund, the dedicated improvement sales tax is estimated to bring in $808,000 in revenue. All expenditures for this fund is for capital outlay projects and transfers. The ending fund balance is projected to be at 12%, which is above the 10% policy goal. Projects and programs within the capital improvement sales tax fund include curb and concrete replacements, $60,000. Huntington Field Bridge replacement, $130,000. Asphalt overlays, $250,000. Parking lot improvements, $20,000. Drainage project on North Canton Ringo, $35,000. Drainage project on Fairgrounds and Lakeview, $40,000. A drainage project on Clark and Oak Lane, $20,000. Stormwater improvements, $50,800. Jackson Street culvert repair, $8,000. Downtown street lights, $30,000. Project reserve, $20,000. We also have transfers to other funds, $340,000 of the general fund, airport fund, $10,000, and $24,500, which will support the MoDOT grant matches for the projects. In preparation of this budget document, it was certainly a team effort. The timely preparation could have not been accomplished without the cooperation of the entire staff. I would certainly like to acknowledge Roger Haynes and all the department directors for their assistance in preparation of this document. We sincerely hope that this budget will be received well by the City Council and the citizens of Mexico. And at this point, we will try to answer any questions that you may have.
I'll start. We know that the city pool is in very bad shape, and you mentioned that we had $200,000 set aside, transfer from the general fund to the parks to hopefully repair that. We don't know at this point if that's enough money. Is that correct?
That is true, and that's why we set the additional $500,000 away for capital projects that we could tap if we needed to. Because we're not sure what we're gonna do, whether, is repairs gonna be the most cost-effective way, or we're gonna have to look at doing something totally different? And until the investigation is done, we really don't know.
So the 500,000 actually came out of the reserves in the general fund, then?
Yes,
It's
they
being
did.
set aside for potential either building a new pool, or at some point, potentially, or maybe we use some of it for repairs.
Repairs, future capital projects, all of that, all the above.
When will we know how much the pool is going to cost?
We're hoping, Chad, what are you thinking, another couple of weeks, you hope?
The aquatic engineer and the chemical engineer were here, almost 2 weeks ago now, and took measurements and got a real, very in-depth look at all the pieces that are problematic. And they're, running the calculators and trying to come up with the most cost-effective way of getting it done. Where he told me 2 or 3 years, so we had time to plan something else, and so that was the goal they're given, and they're working on that. So I would probably expect at least a couple more weeks before they've had time to, because they've got to cost a lot of valves and, go out and actually find, specifications for pieces of equipment before they can cost it for us. So, the one comment I'd make is that it does look like the electrical system is pretty much going to be a replacement other than the main pump controller. So the electrical engineer was not very happy with what he saw.
The pool is kind of the big elephant in the budget here, that nobody knows exactly where. I mean, it looks like the city has some excellent reserves there, but if we have to, build a new pool, then we need to start building those reserves to be able to do that. So
That's right.
I totally support setting aside the 500,000 to work toward something, whether it's a partial rebuild of the pool and make it last another 5 or 10 years. I know we talked about trying to get a 3-year fix, giving you time to figure out what can we do. But-
Yeah, we're working-
and I agree with that.
They're working all those problems in a parallel, work environment. So they're working on all at the same time.
Okay. I just wanted to make that clear, that though it looks like some of the reserves might be a little large in a couple of the funds, they're really not when you're looking at the type of expenditures we're looking at in terms of not only the pool. I mean, there's the bridge replacement out there and other things too, but
You got 30-year-old buildings with 30-year-old roofs. At some point, we're gonna have to address them.
yeah.
As far as the maintenance building, this building, there are a lot of issues. And I think if we've seen, we're better off to try to plan ahead for some of those and not necessarily have to borrow for those when those happen and cost more.
Thank you.
That was gonna be my comment. It's always better to have money built up instead of wondering who you're gonna borrow money from. So, that's it. Go ahead.
We are still going to do the generator at the wastewater treatment plant, is that correct?
That's the plan. What we want to try to do is the engineering design this year, and then do purchase and installation on it in the following year.
Okay, I recall we had some discussions about that, but I wasn't sure where we stood on it. Also, my question to Roger, the Parks and Recreation Fund will have an ending balance of 22%. Recommended balance was like 25%?
That would be a goal. The Parks and Recreation Fund, as the council is aware, was very dependent upon general fund transfers up until the time of the passage of the 1.5 cent sales tax. So the minimum requirement currently is 8%, with a goal of 25. And once it gets more on its feet, more self-sufficient, then we maybe we'll come back to council with a change in that fund balance policy to strengthen it.
That won't cause an accounting problem or anything?
No.
Okay. That's all my questions.
Okay, well, I would echo what these guys have said, that I'm glad we're being proactive rather than reactive. It's a whole lot better to answer questions in terms of why are you building reserves than it is to answer objections to why are you coming to us for a whole bunch of money for something that you didn't plan for. So appreciate the proactive attitude. The Huntingfield Bridge, Kenzie, did I understand correctly that the bids were in, bids, whatever, however many came in, and none of them were,
That's correct. We have bid that project here late summer. We only got one bid. It was considerably above both the engineer's estimate and what we had budgeted. And so we rejected that one bid. We're taking a look at that with both our in-house forces to see if there's some parts we might do in-house and pull that cost down, as well as looking at the design and a possible partnership with the county and county road crews as another method to perhaps get that project done.
but this 135,000 is that original estimate, correct? And that's the one that the bid was way over? That's the figure that,
It was like
Yeah,
175,000.
actually, that number is a little under the engineer's estimate. That's the number that we had originally budgeted last year.
okay. So we might be needing some of those funds to make up the difference.
I hope we can peel the project down and find some innovative ways to bring it in at a lesser cost. That's what we're hoping to do.
Okay.
Is it just time-wise need to be repaired, or is it that bad?
It is certainly not getting any better as time passes. There's been further deterioration since we striped it for one lane down the middle. And again, we began this project getting the design, getting the replacement with the idea of trying to do it before we had a real critical situation. I think we probably are okay for another 12 months or so. We try to inspect it every year and check on the conditions.
I certainly encourage you to work a plan with the county. I know it'd be to their benefit too if they could do this as far as working together. A government works best when governments work together. No question about that. And I really encourage you to do it, not only for the benefit to the taxpayers, but just good cooperation between city and county government.
Well, this is a public hearing, so if anyone from the public would like to comment or ask questions, please come forward. State your name and address. Seeing none, I have moved to close the public hearing.
Second.
Nash,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Bott,
Yes. Next is an ordinance, bill number 2014-56. An ordinance revising the budget for the City of Mexico, Missouri for the fiscal year October 1, 2013 to September 30, 2014, inclusive, and adopting the budget for the fiscal year October 1, 2014 to September 30, 2015, inclusive, appropriating the funds as allocated to various accounts, and authorizing the expenditure of such funds by the city manager and other officials for the purposes indicated. It's up for first reading by title only.
I have nothing more to add, sir.
Okay.
Okay, I move for first reading by title only of bill number 2014-56.
Second.
Nash,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Bott,
Yes. Next, we have a...
Oh, wait a minute. Bill number 2014-56, an ordinance revising the budget for the City of Mexico, Missouri for the fiscal year October 1, 2013 to September 30, 2014 inclusive, and adopting the budget for the fiscal year October 1, 2014 to September 30, 2015 inclusive, appropriating the funds as allocated to various accounts and authorizing the expenditure of such funds by the city manager and other officials for the purposes indicated. Thank you.
Sorry for jumping the gun. I gotta get this right one of these days. Next, we have a staff report, property and general liability insurance. Bruce?
Yes, Sharon, we've taken bids for the property liability insurance coverages for the city, and to cover the details, I will turn to Roger Haynes.
Good evening, council. This was the time that we needed to go out for a full-blown bid for our property and liability insurance. An advertisement for bids was placed in the Mexico Ledger regarding property and liability insurance coverage for the City of Mexico. In addition, requests for proposal packages were sent out to area agencies that had indicated an interest in bidding. 2 agencies provided responses to our proposal, and their policy bid package pricing is as follows. Geller Insurance Group out of Mexico, Missouri provided a bid package for a total premium cost of $169,981. The Daniel and Henry Company out of St. Louis, Missouri provided a policy package in the amount of $147,767. These policy packages include policies for property and general liability, auto, truck, and equipment fleet coverage, law enforcement, data processing equipment, inland marine, public officials, including employment practices liability and errors and omissions policy, funds bonding, which covers employee dishonesty, airport liability, earthquake and flood policies. In addition, we also have an umbrella policy which bumps up our policy limits above the sovereign immunity limits. Based on coverage, pricing, references, and ratings of the proposed insurers, staff recommends that the Daniel and Henry Company be awarded the agency bid for insurance coverage effective October 13th, 2014 for a 1-year term with an option to renew annually for 2 additional 1-year terms based on renewal pricing, quality service, and submitted policies continuing financial strength. The Daniel and Henry Company has provided as an agency property and liability coverage to the City of Mexico in the past in years 2008 through 2011. Coverage types, pricing, and other coverage parameters have been provided as an attachment for council's review. Just a general comment, as stated in Bruce's budget letter, we did have an increase in our property and liability insurance of approximately 16%. Our claims forecasted for this past year are forecasted at about twice of what our premium was last year. So that certainly had an impact on our pricing that we received this year. And then the nature of the business. There's just been more claims, whether it be through natural occurrences like tornadoes and floods through the Midwest, and also the propensity for people to seek litigation more than take responsibility for their own trips and falls from time to time. I know that's simplifying it, but it's more of a litigious society, and of course that's put in our pricing for our insurances next year. I would be glad to answer any questions.
The 16%, how many dollars does that represent? I guess I could calculate it backwards, but
That's about roughly a $30,000 increase in our premium.
30,000?
And we had no problems with Daniel Henry. We had him before.
No, they were both the Gallagher Insurance Company and Daniel and Henry have been our service providers about an equal stint of time over the last 12 years, and both agencies provided us good service. And whenever we had any issues with the insurance policy providers, they were very willing to step in and get the answers in a timely manner.
These deductibles on here won't catch us in terms of making the one more cheaper than the other when after you have to pay a few of the deductibles.
Yeah, we did analyze that, several different ways. For example, like the commercial property, we saw a premium through Trident of $50,000 with a $5,000 deductible, whereas Chubb, who is insured through the Daniel Henry Agency, is about a $37,000 policy, but a $10,000 deductible. So what you have to look at is what's the risk of having that type of an occurrence, and how many occurrences can you have before the deductibles outweigh the difference in premium. And based on this particular risk and our past history, it was better to go with the lower premium and the higher deductible. So we did analyze those through each of those policies.
I don't know how you measure that earthquake one. I just hope we never have one. The numbers there are so huge that.
They are.
Any other questions?
On your own.
Make a motion to go with Daniel Henry Company Group. Los Angeles.
Second.
Nash,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes. Next, we have the claims.
Make a motion to pay the claims.
Second.
Nash,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Fox,
Yes. Next, we have council comments. Councilman Lesh.
Okay, well, great job on the budget. I know it's always a difficult and a long amount of work to get there. I know you start back in probably March or maybe sometimes even the previous year to get these things going. So appreciate all your efforts and put this together. Congratulations to the Arthur Center for their groundbreaking the other day, being able to get that far after working on that project for, I guess, almost 10 years. I think that's a significant event for our community. There was a letter in the newspaper this evening from a lady by the name of Linda Parrish, and I guess if you just read the letter, it's a little disturbing what you read, but I guess I'd like to know a little bit more what the city has done in regard to that complaint.
I'm going to say we probably have received roughly a dozen phone calls, roughly, I would say, reference this issue. We have investigated every one of them. The property owner, the apartment complex management group, has been very cooperative in working with it, looking at it, very much concerned with it as well. The neighbor, adjoining neighbor, in their apartment has been very concerned, and they've all let us in to look. They've all allowed testing. We have had testing by the drug task force, and you've had the utility companies over there, and nothing has been found. Since then, we have believed maybe it could potentially be related to a medical issue as well. So we did seek some medical advice, reference it, meaning public health type information. And we have found that maybe some of the symptoms very well could be related to a medication reaction. And so they have begun to look into that as well. So I think we've done everything that we could do. And like I said, everyone's been very cooperative to try to find out what the situation is, and nothing has been identified that would create this issue.
Well, it's always good to hear the other side of the story. Thank you.
Councilman Nichols.
Good job on the budget to everybody. Thank you. I had the pleasure of not only attending the Autonomous District's open house, I got to help clean for it too. Thanks everybody for coming out. It was very well attended. Nice building. If you haven't been out there, come out. We'll give you a free tour. That's it.
Councilman Miller.
Okay, well, Bruce, Roger, and all the staff, thank you for the hard work you did on the budget. It's an excellent budget, I think, and I think it sets us some pretty solid feet for the future. One thing we might consider, address this to Chad, as you go down South Clark Street and look over at the Green Estates Park, if you live here, you know what it is. If you don't know what it is. Can we get a sign out there on that thing? Even on the rail fence, something to say it's a public
One
park.
of the things we've looked at is putting it on the brick wall. And
Ah.
probably need to talk to the Smith family before we consider that. But yeah, we need to come up with a science solution. I agree.
You do,
We've kicked the
however.
can around, and that's the same thing in staff. We've kicked the can around the block about 500 times. And we all end up doing what you just did too. It's like, you
Well,
know.
there is a plaque on the
Yep.
gate. And you can't read unless you drive all the way up, stop and get up.
Right, and that was specifically part of the.
And I understand it. I knew about the Iron Gate
Yeah,
the first week I was here.
yeah.
But for someone going by, a little plaque, another plaque or something on the gate's not gonna do it. I would like to see a fairly large sign out there along the rail fence.
And Greg, I go out there and say, it's not just
Yeah,
that park,
fresh air.
all of our parks get better wayfinding. And
Well-
that's something we've been,
That's on
Trying to work on it.
that's on a main passageway through town, and I'd like to see something done.
agreed.
Okay.
We'll take it back up so we can come up with a better
Thank you.
solution.
Thank you.
Bruce?
I have nothing at this time, Your Honor.
I want to echo everyone's congrats on the budget, and thanks for your hard work. And once again, thanks for being proactive on it. Is the painting job all done? On the
Did
building?
they finish today?
Don't think so.
Okay, there's not much left. I know the soffit's done. I know
It's-
they were working on the downspouts today. I don't know whether they completely finished or not.
It's looking good. I noticed as it came in, it looks really dressed up. Appreciate that. Next is public comments. Do I hear anyone like to come forward? All right, seeing none, I move that we adjourn into executive session pursuant to the revised statutes of Missouri 610.0213 personnel matters.
Second?
Lesh,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes, did you say 03-1 or 03-2?
Yes.